here today with all of you. The talk title today is Resistance is Futile. And just so you know, I've gotten to the point where I'm openly claiming, I think we're called nerds, you know, into comic books and Star Trek, and like, I admit it all, right? So the talk title today is Resistance is Futile. If you remember anything from Star Trek in the 80s, I see a few heads nodding. Yeah, resistance is futile. Because I want to talk about resistance and the difference between what is resistance and what is being in the flow. And one of the things that happens on our Wednesday nights is I don't come up with new stuff to reveal. That Spirit reminds us of what we already know. Spirit reminds us of what's already in our hearts, since we are already connected to infinite knowledge. And so what I want to remind us about today is the difference between resisting and forcing and allowing flow. I am taking judo classes. I'm probably in my 6th or 7th class. And I'm taking private lessons with our 3rd degree black belt, a really amazing person. And so he's been teaching me, coaching me, that, you know, when people come at you like, you know, and that you don't match force with force, right? If somebody's coming at you like that and they're coming at you, what you do is you allow their force, right? And so he was trying to teach me a particular flip. I could not get it. I was just, I tried over and over, and he's like, nope, that's not it. I'm like, over there with his, you know, he's like hanging over my back like a sack of potatoes. He's like, no, that's not it. And I'm just like, ugh. So finally he says, I'm going to kill you. I want you to really get that I'm going to kill you. I'm going to come after you, and I'm going to kill you. But don't worry. No mind. Just allow. And I allow myself to go really still. And even though he was doing a really good job of looking like he was going to kill me, and here we have like a 200-pound man running at me, right? He takes off, and he's got his scary, mean face on, and I just went, and next thing you know, he was on the ground and had my knee in his throat. He was like, yes, right? And of course, that one time, somebody was looking in the window of the room where, and they were like, and they were filling their water bottle, and they were like, oh. Like they couldn't believe it, right? They didn't see all the times that I had like not made the flip. But really that's a lesson that I'm learning in my life right now. And I think, and I wanted to share it, is this idea is that so many times we have it that we have to gut our way through things. We have to gut our way through the obstacle, the thing that we're dealing with, you know, in a situation or a relationship or an issue. We think that we have to fight power with power. We think we need to match resistance with resistance, right? Well, what my judo instructor is telling me is I'm 125 pounds, he's 200 pounds, he's bigger than me, I'm going to lose. If I try to do match resistance with resistance, it's not going to go well for me. And, you know, one of us is going out of the cart, and it might be me. But when we learn to allow, like to be in the flow of the universe, to be in the dancing of the divine, something different shows up. Something begins to shift. And it's important to recognize the seed of each of the things that we're looking at. What is the seed of resistance? Often the seed of resistance is some manifestation of our ego saying, I have to win. Or something's wrong with me, or this should be this way, or I have to win this in this way. I've won it this way all this time. This technique has worked for me. I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to gut it through, and I'm going to do my willpower, and I'm going to do mind over matter, right? You know, when people say mind over matter, most people think your brain over matter. Mind over matter means divine mind over matter. Divine mind within me over matter. Divine mind within me over circumstances. Divine mind within me conquering these thought forms I have that say, you're never going to flip that 200-pound man. You've never done it before. You failed before. You keep failing. It's never going to happen again. All of that. When we start talking about divine mind over matter, it's not resistance. It's not based in my ego. It's not based in my will to survive. It's not based in this idea that I'm separate from anything on the planet and that I have to distinguish myself. What it means is when we give up resistance is we give up our need to assert our personality and we go into no mind so that divine mind can show up. And then we can easily take that man that's going to kill you, that's running at you, and flip him on his back and put your knee on his throat, right? One of the things that had always worked for me was my daughter and I had played some game, and it's like, what is your totem, right? My totem was the salmon. And the salmon, you know, always swimming upstream, striving, getting up there, you know, like, we're going to make it work, you know, and it's like the ants go marching one by one for like my whole life. This is how I'm going to survive. This is my survival technique, is that I work harder. If you're not winning, you're not working hard enough, soldier, right? That's how I was. And when I went to law school, I was a single parent of a 2-year-old, and I didn't really have a lot of support systems around me. So, but I was going to get it through. I was going to make it, right? And if you've ever heard me talk over any period of time, I have stories about, you know, I put my daughter to bed at 8 o'clock at night, I'd go to sleep with her, I'd get up at 2 in the morning, I'd get 5 hours of studying on the day, 3 hours during the workday, 14 hours on the weekends. Like, I was going to make it through law school with distinction, right? Every semester for my first year, I would miss honor roll. The honor roll is 3.0, right? But they curved at a 2.5 then. I'd be 2.8, 2.96. Like, I couldn't get it. Like, no matter how hard I gutted it out and tried, and nothing. Like, you know, I don't think anyone even knew who I was anymore, because it was like me and my books and this child and daycare and the classes, that was it. And my skills, everything that I had always used to gut through it, stopped working. And I remember I had a male friend in my home. I'm not even sure why he was there, and I really don't remember who he was. But he was, I remember him standing in my doorway, and I'm studying for finals. It's the weekend. And he says, Tammy. And I'm like, I've got finals coming up. He was like, Tammy. Like, he needed to say my name to get through to me. He said, do you hear this child in there screaming? And I said, she needs to know I have finals. He's like, she's 3, and I have finals. So she's been screaming for an hour. And I was like, he was like, do you even hear her? I hadn't heard her. And in that moment, I really had this moment of realizing. He said, she's never going to be 3 again. And I remember going, that is true. And in that moment, I shifted how I was going to do law school. I shifted it so that since my daughter was never going to be 3, 4, and 5 again, that I made sure that the time I had with her, that I made it quality time, and that I scheduled her time as rigorously as I was studying my study time. And I gave up that I had to succeed, like my ego depended on me doing this. I gave up that I had to. And I took on that I was going to be a part of what life had created for me. And this was single parenting of a 2-year-old in law school. And I prioritized my daughter's time. So the next semester, when I was studying for finals, and then I remember the day I walked up to the wall, the dean's list wall, and I was on the dean's list. I made honor roll. The next semester I made dean's list. When I graduated from law school, I got dean's awards and honors and all kind of stuff, right? Scholarships. And it was because I had to give up this place in me that said, my ego demands that you succeed, and took on being more in the flow of what is it that Spirit is speaking through me. And so often when we look at the things in our life, we think, oh, well, we should have this one handled by now. I should have this issue handled by now. And we stop remembering that it's a small thing. So I should be able to handle it, right? And so then our egos go into overdrive, like you should be able to discipline yourself enough. You should be able to conquer yourself enough. You should be able to subdue ourselves enough. It's really interesting with the, I was reading Genesis. I have this background in the Bible. I think I memorized most of it, and which is really sick, but I can still, when I think of a thought, sometimes it'll go to a passage in the Bible. And this is from Genesis 1, with creation. Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth on the earth. And I always remember that people have perverted this idea that actually being civilized means subduing and conquering not just ourselves, but other people, subduing and conquering nature, subduing and conquering the form of Mother Nature, is in some cases been the definition of civilization. I remember when I was studying in undergrad, there was this idea about power over as opposed to power within. And power over was the definition of civilization. So when you have indigenous cultures that looked like they were living off the land and they were living in harmony with the land and they didn't have solid structures, there was a failure of the European colonists to understand that they were also human. I'm from the Apache Nation. And so they were, like savages, and they're not really people and all of this stuff, because there was a failure to recognize that because Mother Nature hadn't been formed into an agrarian society with houses with four walls that you could recognize, that it was somehow not actually civilization. And you look at the Pueblo Indians, they actually said that the Pueblo Indians weren't Indians because they had an agrarian structure, and they could get that they had, plants and buildings, and like that looks like, okay, those are people, because those are civilized. It took till 1913 for the Sandoval case for them to realize that. Then they started calling them Indians again, and it actually helped them. But the point of that is that when we have it, that civilization or advancement is based on conquering nature and forming it in our image, that what we're doing is we're actually not having an understanding of what it is like to be in the flow of what Spirit is speaking through us. I'm not saying we shouldn't live in houses. I'm talking about our ability to recognize something else other than what we're used to seeing. In my native culture, we are often taught when you pick a plant, you don't pick the plant by the root. That's actually like a sacrilege to take the plant and pull it up by its root. You take pieces of the plant, you talk to it, you say, thank you for what you are put here to offer me. Thank you for what you are bringing for me. Thank you for when I'm putting you to your highest purpose of what you're here for. It is a conversation with this plant. It's not rip it up by the root and use it. So often, though, we treat ourselves like that. We take ourselves and we rip ourselves up by the root and start beating ourselves with it to try to make ourselves perform. It's like if you're living your life as a racehorse, and you're on the top of the racehorse, and the racehorse is our body, and you're beating it and beating it and beating it to try to get to the end point. And what we do what we realize when we're doing this, that what we're actually doing is we have an end point in mind, and we're beating ourselves to get to this end point that we created. When in actuality, what we're created to do, what we're designed to do, is be in the flow right now of the experience right now of the ride. So often that doesn't mean we don't set our intention, but we can set our intention and then be in the experience of the flow of the path of getting to that point. But so often we have it like we have to get somewhere. I need my finances to look a certain way. I need this relationship to look a certain way. I need people in my life to act a certain way. I need my health to be a certain way. I need to be a certain way, a certain class, a certain this, a certain that. We have it all. right, in our heads about what it is we think we have to do. And then we beat ourselves to get to that point. And what we're actually doing is resisting something in ourselves when we're doing that. So I have 3 steps that I think that is important for us to do. I think the first thing that it's important for us to do is listen. Checking in with spirit in our bodies. You know, one of the things that when I'm eating food, every time I eat something, I'm actually checking in with my body. And I ask my body, how are you going to feel after you eat this? And I check in and say, how does that feel? Does that feel good? Is this what you want? Is this what you need? And there are times where you can ask Annette, I will order food at a restaurant, and I'll look at it, and I can smell it, and I can feel how I'm going to feel after it, and I won't eat it. And it's because I'm starting to listen to the body tell me what it needs. I walk into my workplace, and I may have files all piled up and all kind of work for me to do. And I walk in, and instead of being overwhelmed, I ask the office body, it's an energy body, what is it that I need to do today? What is the best thing that I can do? What is there for me to do? And I listen, and listen to it. When I'm in the mall, where I am often, and I'm shopping, I'm actually asking my money body, is this okay for me to spend? Is this something I need? Why am I buying this? What am I getting from this thing? What is the experience that I'm buying myself here, right? And it's not to judge myself. It's to listen to the energy body of everything that I'm in touch with. Because as I start listening, everything is God. Everything is energy. Everything has a pulse, has a spiritual pulse. And if I take on that everything does have that, then it's got spirit in it that's talking to me. And all I have to do is ask and listen. Listening to that still small voice. Listening to that God consciousness in everything. I have a new friend. I have a new relationship. And I listen in. Is this friendship for my highest good? Is there something that I'm to offer this situation that is for a divine purpose? How am I going to feel it after I eat this, after I digest this person's energy, right? And it guides me in a different way to where I'm listening to being part of the flow. I'm not, this person has a certain criteria and I'm going to check off this person's good enough to be my friend, and that person's good enough to be my friend, and this, you know, I give up a lot of the structures, and I give up the forcing, and I give up the civilizing of my consciousness, and I go into delving into the flow, the listening. So I think that's the first thing, is listening. The second step is being with the experience. Being with the experience of what is this now. Being and feeling it fully. What does this feel like to sit in this room, in this moment, in this space, in the spirit, in the listening now? So not just listening, but being fully present in the now and being in the experience. And then the third step is giving ourselves the space to allow the flow from a place of trust. I trust myself. I trust my listening. I trust the God energy in what I'm talking to. And because I trust that flow space, because I'm trusting that Spirit is giving me the right messages, what I need to hear at the right time, at the right place, from the right person, from the right source, because I'm in a space of trust, I listen in the moment, quieting myself now, experiencing that experience fully, and then I listen and I trust. Now, sometimes I don't always do what my voices or, you know, the energies around are saying. Sometimes I go in the mall and I'm committed to buying the dress and those shoes, they just have to come home with me. And I ask the finances, energy body, how do you feel about me buying these shoes? And energy body says, have you seen your shoe closet? You don't really need that. And I go, oh, but I want it. But I can be responsible for saying, I know that I don't really need this, but there's nothing going, don't do it, those shoes are really bad, you go into bankruptcy, there's no sort of thing doing that. But if we're in the flow of listening to our bodies, what does my body need? What is my body calling for? Is my body saying I need rest? Is my body saying I need to nurture myself? Is my body saying I need a cool bath? Is my body saying I need to go meditate? Is my body saying that I need to be outside and soak up some nature energy? What is it saying to me? Being in the flow of it, being in the moment of it, being in the experience of it, and trusting that I know with absolute certainty that God is within me, and that is what I'm listening to. And when I'm silent and still, I know the difference between my ego rambling and my spirit's listening. And I think that that's one of the most powerful places of spiritual growth that we have, is quieting ourselves and listening to spirit, and listening to the people and the places and the objects and all of this around us, and asking, who am I for this situation? What do I need? What can I offer? What is there for me? From a space of knowing that spirit is only for us.